Okay, my recorder is going. Today is Monday, April 19th, 2021. Following is the 686th Arizona Racing Commission meeting held via Google Meet. This Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I'll go ahead and take roll and then turn it over to Chair Coolidge. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Hover? We understand she's having some technical difficulties and attempting to get in. Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum, sir, and it is 10:03 a.m.
Thank you. At this point, I'll call to order the 686th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting. It is April 19th, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and move our executive session for executive purposes only to the end of our agenda. And then we'll move over to, actually beforehand, I'd like to welcome our newest commissioner. Thank you for making the time to join us today. With that said, we'll move over to action items and review. That'll be C1, resource adoption grants. Not sure, or Juan Casillas would like to jump in on that.
Mr. Chair, before we get going, I would respectfully request that at least once an hour we take a 10-minute break.
Yes, sir. At some point, we'll not have 7-hour meetings. Mr. Casillas or Mr. Estrada, chime in on the resource and grants.
Yes, Mr. Estrada, can you address that, please?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chairman. On the adoption greyhounds, if I can get an extension to provide you with further details on that, I would really appreciate it.
No problem. We'll move to action item C2, request from Santa Cruz Fair and Rodeo Association to cancel its 2021 live race season due to COVID-19 restrictions. Does the department have anything they want to add to that?
No, Commissioner.
Any notes from my fellow commissioners on that? And I have no problem doing it as long as actually I'll open it up. Did the horsemen have anything to?
Chairman Coolidge, I believe Commissioner Garay just left the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Dropping like flies today.
Yep, we no longer have a quorum. It's 10:06 a.m. and we're going to need to put a pause on this until we get a quorum here.
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey Langhoffer. Our client has advised us that they're trying to connect as well and are waiting for permission to be let. So.
Holly, I'm trying to get you the Google Meet link.
Yeah, so the phone number
Commissioner Coolidge, it looks like Commissioner Garay is back with us. I don't know.
Yeah, I do apologize. I hit the wrong button.
Hang on a second.
Okay, it looks like it's 10:07.
I need to figure out what's going on the website.
We'll go ahead and jump back into it. Jump back and make sure we have it just on the record. We're talking about action item C2, request from Santa Cruz County Fair and Rodeo Association to cancel its meet. Any HBPA guys on the line have anything to say about it? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Nothing to comment
sorry,
from the
I do not
AQRA.
understand what the heck is going on.
Thank you, sir. I will move to approve the request
also in the middle
for
of the
Santa
meeting,
Cruz County
so.
Fair and Rodeo Association to cancel its 2021 live race season due to COVID-19 restrictions.
I'll second
Hang
that.
on, I need to do the roll. Thank you. Having a motion and a second on the floor, motion by Chair Coolidge and seconded by Vice Chair Garay to approve the cancellation of Santa Cruz County Fair and Rodeo Association's race meet for this season due to COVID restrictions. I'll go ahead and do the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover is still waiting to get in. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Great. We'll move to C3, Arizona
Hang
Downs
on, Holly.
request
I'm
for race
going to
dates
send this
for
over to you. I'm going to
2021
send
race
another
meet.
email to you, okay?
And we can go
And I'm
into
really
executive
sorry, I
session
do
if
not
any
know
of the
what's
other
going on.
commissioners have any questions about that. Ms. Wagner, do you have any
I hope
updates
not.
that you feel need to be brought up to the commission?
Chair Coolidge, I don't.
I
I
just sent it
have
to
no
you.
independent knowledge
Thank
as
you.
to whether there is
Bye.
actually a permit application before the commission. That's typically when these race dates are provided to the commission, so that's certainly information that the commission can inquire further on.
I have inquired, and I know they're working on the application, but it has not been submitted yet. Any of my fellow commissioners have anything they want to bring up on that?
Other than I do know that they had put in their paperwork, and it does seem like it took a few days for them to get a response. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm seeing Arizona Downs doing everything they need to do to get this done. I would just respectfully request the department to try to be a little more quicker on turnaround back to them so that this can get taken care of. There's a lot of people's lives and livelihood that we're tinkering around with here. They deserve our attention.
Chair Coolidge, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for legal advice.
Yes, ma'am. I'll second that.
Thank you. Having a motion by Commissioner Olson to go into executive session and seconded by Chair Coolidge. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover's not present. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried. The time is 10:10 a.m. and we will go into executive session.
I think I can maybe enough juice in that.
This is Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. This is the second open session of the 686th Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place April 19th, 2021. We are coming back into the open session. It is 10:30 a.m. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Here.
Commissioner Hover? Hang on, I think that's her now. Commissioner Hover? Okay, I've admitted her, but she was having technical difficulties with her audio, so we'll go ahead and have her out at the moment. Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Hover, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have my quorum, and again, it is 10:30 a.m. Chair Coolidge, it's your meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Just as a quick reminder, we are on action item C3. Open it up for any communications or comments from fellow commissioners.
I personally have none, and if no one else has any, I would like to make a motion to approve the June 1st, 2nd, 8th, 9th, 15th, 16th, 22nd, 23rd, 29th, 30th race dates for Arizona Downs, leaving plenty of time for them to get their permit in for the next race season, and us to approve the July, August, September dates.
I'll second that. Based that we don't have a renewal application yet, that's why I'm going to second that.
Thank you. Having a motion by Commissioner Garay and seconded by Chair Coolidge to approve just the June racing dates for the Arizona Downs permit. I'll go do roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Great. We'll move to C4. Request for Sport Tech Inc. for the temporary continuum of existing 2021 tote license due to acquisition by BetMakers US, the commission may vote to go into executive session if needed. Kelly, do you have anything you need to put on our radar?
I don't, Chair. I would defer to Director Casillas for any additional information that the commission may require.
Thank you. Mr. Casillas, do you have any information on Sportex?
Sportech is being bought out by BetMakers. They have made the request to continue with the license of Sportech. However, they technically need to be licensed under BetMakers. They're basically asking because all the existing Sportech employees will remain in place. However, based on the fact that they don't want to have a break in offering of services, the recommendation would be to approve it until we can get their complete application and due diligence completed on BetMakers.
Understood. And BetMakers, are they under good standing within the department?
At this point, yes. We have not discovered anything derogatory. However, the full background investigation has not been completed.
Thank you. Mr. Pringle, you have your hand up. Are you trying to speak on this, Adam?
Yes, I would. Thank you, and appreciate that. My name is Rich Pringle. I'm the Chief Legal Officer of Sportech PLC, and I just wanted to provide some additional information on the transaction and the request for conditional approval to complete that transaction. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start out by saying I'm a proud graduate of the University of Arizona many moons ago, but it's nice to be here before your commission, so thanks for having us. Excellent. And we also have some folks from BetMakers who are dialed in as well if you'd like to hear from them. But just by way of quick background, Sportech Racing LLC is the actual license holder there in Arizona. We provide totalizator services, so we're a tote company. And back in December of last year, a proposed transaction was announced whereby BetMakers Technology Group, which is a publicly traded company, will be acquiring Sportech Racing LLC at some point, most likely within the next month or so. So in the process of belt and suspenders, we've reached out to all of our licensing bodies and regulatory authorities to introduce the deal back in January to seek advice and counsel as far as if any requests were made. We've dealt with Greg Stiles and provided an amended application on behalf of Sportech Racing showing the post-completion structure, which for all intent and purpose will be exactly the same as it currently is. There will be no changes to any of the employees, the directors, the customer base, no changes whatsoever. So it's really just a change of control up at the corporate structure. I know BetMakers has provided additional information to Mr. Stiles, who I now understand is in the process or has retired. So we appreciate all of his work on the application, but we believe we're in a point now where we'd like to ask the Commission to issue conditional approval for us to complete the transaction, and then, of course, to allow you the additional time to conduct your due diligence on BetMakers. That's all I had. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Looks like all of your documents are in order. I appreciate you putting that all together for us. Actually, I'm going to move to quickly go into executive session on this.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge, seconded by Commissioner Olson to go into executive session. Roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. It is 10:37, and we are going to recess this open session for executive session. Thank you. Time is 10:48, and this is Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. We are going to reconvene the third open session of the 686th Arizona Racing Commission meeting. I will do a roll call for quorum purposes. Commissioner Coolidge.
Present.
Commissioner Garay.
Here.
Commissioner Hover.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Present.
Thank you. We have our quorum, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Pringle, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Quick question for you. What is BetMaker's concern? You know, I'm looking at how we can do this without disrupting things. A, I want to know if BetMakers has an application in with the department, and then B, what's the concern with, you know, I realize BetMakers can't purchase SportTech and get their license, so, you know, there's some transition there, but would like to hear from you what your concern is with that acquisition, and you know, what the ask is on this action item from y'all.
Absolutely, yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to be heard on that. So the request is made by SportTech Racing, just from the technical point, as the licensee itself. And we currently service customers out in Arizona by virtue of that tote license. And what we're trying to do is avoid any disruption to our customers for the provision of those services that would potentially stem from a change of control at the corporate level. So in an abundance of caution, we've reached out to your agency to advise you that there would be a change of control at the corporate ownership level of SportTech Racing, but have done our best to provide assurances that SportTech Racing itself will not be changed from a day-to-day perspective, from the employees who service our customers, who we employ out in Arizona, et cetera. So it's really an exercise in prudence to reach out to our licensing bodies to advise them of this potential change once the transaction has completed, and to ask for conditional approval to move forward with that, so that we're not putting ourselves, that being SportTech Racing, in a position of non-compliance with any regulatory body. So all we're asking for from the agency is that you approve us to move forward with a transaction that it would not have an adverse effect on our licensing.
Well, I appreciate the due diligence, first and foremost. Secondly, I'd like to know if BetMakers has submitted or is quickly planning on submitting an application to the department.
Yes, so the SportTech Racing's application was submitted on February 12th, indicating the post-completion structure. And at that point, it was requested that BetMaker's CEO, a gentleman by the name of Todd Buckingham, submit a personal application, which was submitted in March with your agency. And I do not believe that any additional request has been made for any BetMakers entity. Again, they're not looking to be a license holder. They're just the corporate owner of SportTech Racing post-completion.
Got it. Any of my other commissioners have any questions or comments?
My only question is, just to clarify, so there is an application in play right now?
Yes, sir. Dated February 12th, 2021 was submitted to Arizona Department of Gaming for the post-completion structure of SportTech Racing. So the only change is, instead of SportTech Racing being owned by SportTech Inc., which is a U.S. holding company, it's now going to be owned by BetMakers US Inc., which is another U.S. holding company.
Question for the department. I'm not sure who would answer it, but has there been any additional information needed from BetMakers on licensing? You know, maybe this one goes to Director Casillas on what they're going to need to submit for licensing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I will reach out personally personally to Mr. Pringle and have discussions on the requirements of bet makers. As I stated previously, Bet Makers is an independent entity purchasing Sport Tech, and they have to be personally licensed. They are a new entity. They cannot just assume Sport Tech's license. So I will reach out to Mr. Pringle and get that done.
Thank you, sir. Considering Sport Tech's in good standing with the department, I would move to conditionally approve Sport Tech's continued operation while moving forward with the Bet Makers acquisition and department licensing.
I'll second that.
Thank you. With the motion and second on the floor, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you kindly for your time.
Yes, sir. We're going to move to actually, let's just pop back up so I don't forget about it. Item C1, horse race adoption grants. Mr. Estrada, are you prepared to talk about those?
Yes, sir.
The floor is yours.
Not yet. I would request a couple more minutes, please.
Oh, not yet. Okay. We'll go to C5, request for Arizona Downs approval of Michael Weiss as general manager. Arizona Downs have any comments on this one?
Hello, this is Dave Author. We've been unable to hook up through our computers, and we're on the telephone. You may want to mention to your technical folks that there's a whole crowd of people that have been unable to log on to the camera or the Google Meet. But in any event, as we announced at the last meeting, we've hired Mike Weiss as our general manager. I believe he has been... as you know, he's been vetted for some time. He's also filed his application, and he's fully licensed. And we request your approval to have him be the general manager of Arizona Downs for this race meet. If you have any questions, in particular, I believe Mike is on the line. If not, we just ask for your vote. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I appreciate you expediting this paperwork from our last meeting. Mr. Weiss, I see you're signed to speak on this. Do you have any things you want to say? Unless I can open it up to commissioners.
No, I don't have much, but, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I just want to say I'm really excited to complete this new challenge. I'm happy and excited to work with a quality company like P2E. Been in close association with the horsemen in Arizona, trying to save, Arizona racing. And I did get to go out to the track for the first time about a week and a half ago. Was pleasantly surprised at how well maintained, how beautiful, and how clean the facility is.
Thank you, sir. One question
go ahead, Chuck. Mike, I just wanted to verify with you. I've known you for a number of years, but I just wanted to reaffirm your commitment to working with the folks on the backside and the track safety, specifically making sure there's no rocks in the track.
Would you like me to go over what we're doing with the track right now, or you want to wait for my report?
I can wait before you report.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely committed to safety and the horsemen on the backside. And I think I have a reputation that goes back many decades in regards to that.
One question on my end from the department is that they've received all the proper paperwork on their end.
If I may say, Mr. Coolidge, I have been licensed in Arizona as general manager for the last 6 years and am for Rito, and have been currently licensed already this year. I guess the paperwork fell through the cracks somewhere. Which one? Carlos found it. So
I appreciate that. Director Casillas, any issues on paper?
Well, what occurred, Mr. Chairman, is that we recently had a purging of the system regarding records retention, and a lot of records that weren't supposed to get purged got purged. However, we've done some backtracking, and Mr. Weiss is valid and in good standing.
Appreciate it. Mr. Estrada, I see you have a hand raised.
Yes, sir. I just want to comment application. I personally have worked with Mr. Weiss in the past, and yes, he is currently licensed. He included his bio, just in case we did require it. Mr. Weiss has been extremely cooperative. If he needed to get relicensed for whatever reason, he was going to do so. Again, his bio is in order. The letter from the tracks stating that he is going to be the general manager for Arizona Downs in place, so all documents are good to go.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from my fellow commissioners?
I have nothing, and at this point in time, having known Mike Weiss for a number of years, and even meeting with him at Relito, I would like to move to approve Mike Weiss as the general manager for Arizona Downs.
Second.
Thank you. With the motion on the floor by Mr. Garay, can somebody please mute their phone, please? We're getting feedback. Thank you. So with the motion on the floor by Vice Chair Garay and seconded by Chair Coolidge to approve Mr. Weiss for General Manager Arizona Downs, roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. We're going to move over to action item C6. Turf Paradise's request for the Commission to revisit the procedure concerning off-track betting facilities and the 60-mile radius issue pursuant to the IHA Section 3004B1 approved at the September 2018 Commission meeting and continued from March 11th, 2021 meeting. I'm going to go ahead.
Mr. Chair, since we're at an hour, I respectfully request we take a 10-minute break before jumping into this item that may take some time.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, I'm going to go ahead and move that we enter executive session for some legal stuff. So let's go ahead and say 5 minutes. So let's meet in executive session at 11:05ish.
Do we have a second for the? I'll second it.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded for going into executive session to begin at 5 minutes from recessing this open session. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. This open session is now recessed at 11:01. We will come back in after executive session. Thank you. Open session. The following is the fourth open session of the April 19th, 2021 686 regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meet. Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwill will do roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay, I understand, was called out. He will try and join us when he is able. Commissioner Hover?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and again, it's 11:43 a.m.
Okay, we're going back to C6, action item C6. Running through here, it looks like we have a lot of people signed up to speak. Mr. Francier, are you going to be deferring your time over to Mr. Claus?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Claus, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to speak since you have a PowerPoint and others. Please keep it 10 minutes or less, though.
I may be less. Thank you, Chairman Coolidge and Commissioners. Let's see if I can get my presentation to work here. Can you all just let me know if you're seeing that?
Yes, sir.
Great. I'm not going to put it in slideshow mode because that seems to ruin it, so I'll just go through the slides. There aren't very many of them. I just want to open up by commenting that I have reviewed the briefs that have been submitted to the Commission, and if the Commission remembers, Commissioner Olson may have reviewed this in the minutes of the previous meeting, that the premise for being here and the premise for having briefs submitted was because there was an argument by Arizona. No, he said Arizona reviewed. There was an argument at the last regular meeting of the Commission by Arizona Downs and HBPA that somehow the activity taking place at Arizona Downs OTBs was not an interstate activity. But when faced with the light of reality and the language and definitions employed by Congress, that argument was abandoned. So Arizona Downs then argued that Turf Paradise somehow, quote, agreed, end quote, in the September 18, 2018 Commission meeting to somehow waive the application of federal law. And they claim that Turf Paradise even agreed to Arizona Downs OTBs. But again, facts are stubborn things. And anyone reviewing the recording of the September 18, 2018 meeting can hear then Chairman McClintock noting two critical things. First, when discussing the 60-mile rule that is being discussed now 3 years later, he noted, quote, "We," meaning the Commission, "cannot supersede the law," end quote. Immediately thereafter, he asked if the stakeholders, Arizona Downs and Turf Paradise, would somehow agree to waive the 60-mile rule. And though there is no verbal response on the audio of the meeting, what we hear Chairman McClintock noting is that in response to that question, he, quote, "saw a representative Turf Paradise shaking his head no." So that leaves Arizona Downs with the argument that it really focuses on in its brief, and it's actually the argument that HPPA focuses on in its brief. And I have to say, it's one of the most cynical arguments I've encountered in 27 years of practice. And it has three parts. The first part is we, meaning Arizona Downs, don't have to follow the law. The second part of their argument is even if you determine that we have to follow the law, you, the Commission, don't have to follow the law. And here's where we're really getting to the cynical part of the argument. Three, even if you believe that we, Arizona Downs, have to follow the law, and you, the Commission, have to follow the law, don't follow the law, Arizona Downs tells you, because if you don't follow the law, there's nothing Turf Paradise can do about it. But again, that argument has a real problem, not the least of which is a word that appears over and over and over again in the statutory scheme that governs both this Commission and Turf Paradise. Here's what Section 3004 of the IHA says, and you'll see that I highlighted in red and bold a word that will be repeated over and over again in the statutory scheme. In addition to the requirement of subsection A, any off-track betting office shall obtain the approval of all currently operating tracks within 60 miles of such off-track betting office. We pointed out in our brief that every single court that has actually asked the question, what does this mean, has determined that what this statutory language means is exactly what it says, that shall means shall. The United States District Court for the District of Kentucky, the United States District Court for the District of Maryland, the United States District Court in Florida, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Even the one case that Arizona Downs and the HPPA, you will hear it said over and over again today, the 22-year-old case from the First Circuit, Sterling, Suffolk, referred to this statutory language as a, quote, federal mandate, end quote. So the law, the 60-mile rule, is set forth by the United States Congress in mandatory terms. And every court that has asked the question has determined that the federal mandate requires a track to be asked for approval and to give approval within 60 miles of an off-track betting facility. The commission each commissioner shall take an official oath before serving on the commission to follow the law. Well, it means that the commission has powers and duties that are prescribed to it. And ARS Section 5-104, again, using that word, the commission shall prepare and adopt complete rules to govern and there are words there's a number of things that the commission is required to do, but the most important one for the purposes of today is to prepare and adopt complete rules to govern the proper conduct of racing and parimutuel racing, wagering, and any other matter pertaining to the proper conduct of racing in this state. So each commissioner has taken an oath to follow the law, and the commission is mandated by the Arizona legislature to follow the law. Well, what is the law that applies to Arizona Downs? Arizona Downs is a permittee. Arizona Downs shall comply with all rules and orders of the commission or department. Well, how do we know that actually means the Interstate Horse Racing Act, where that Section 3004B comes from? Because, again, the Arizona legislature has told us. In ARS Section 5-112B, the Arizona legislature states in mandatory terms that all simulcasts of horse or harness racings shall comply with the Interstate Horse Racing Act of 1978. So let's get back to that language. What does that language say? What does the language of the Interstate Horse Racing Act say? That in addition to the requirements of subsection A, the requirements that are required of subsection A, by subsection A, any off-track betting office, that means an off-track betting facility, shall obtain the approval of a currently operating track within 60 miles of such off-track betting office. So what you'll hear today, and what you read in the briefs when you read them by Arizona Downs and HPPA, is that shall doesn't mean shall, and that you, the commission, can bend, break, or disregard the law to benefit Arizona Downs. And that's actually a constant refrain that I have heard from Arizona Downs since being involved in these commission meetings. That shall actually never means shall when it is applied to Arizona Downs. And then we actually saw this at the last special meeting. Chairman Coolidge specifically cited 3 separate statutes that Arizona Downs was required to follow but had not. 3 separate statutes that should have compelled the commission to deny or not renew a permit. But as has so often been the case when it comes to Arizona Downs, the commission just did not follow the law. And if I could just take the last few moments to get philosophical about this for a second. The only reason any of this works, and when I say any of this, I mean our system of government and our systems of laws, is because we follow the rules. James Madison, one of the primary author of the Constitution in Federalist 51,
30 seconds.
Say that again?
30 seconds, sir.
Thank you. That if men were angels, no government would be necessary. But you first have to enable the government to control the governed, and the next place, oblige it to control itself. That is what we are asking the commission to do, to control itself. I know that the refrain has been we want to save year-round racing, but if you ignore the law...
Sir. I appreciate it. We're going to get and move on to Mr. Langhofer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make only one point and then yield the balance of my time to Doug McSwain. The only point I'll make is that the characterization you just heard from Turf Paradise of the meeting in September 2018 is factually incorrect, and you don't have to take my word for it. You should listen to the audio of the meeting for yourself, or listen to Commissioner Goray's recollection of that meeting. As we understand it, and as the audio of that meeting indicates, there was agreement from Turf Paradise to permit off-track betting sites within 60 miles of its track here. That's a factual matter. There's evidence on it in the record. You've got a commissioner who remembers it that way, and you shouldn't accept this sort of revisionist history from Turf Paradise. I'd yield the balance of my time to Mr. McSwain to make his substantive arguments.
Mr. McSwain, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge, and thank you, commissioners. Let me address the shall argument. The shall here is that this commission shall carry out the national policy on gambling, and that is the first substantive provision written into the Interstate Horse Racing Act, Section 3001, subsection A1. The national policy toward gambling was decided back in 1972 and 74 report, and Congress adopted that national policy toward gambling and said that states shall be primarily responsible for all matters pertaining to gambling within their borders and gambling on horse racing. That is what this commission is charged to do under federal law. And I would say that in addition to that being the requirement, yes, the Interstate Horse Racing Act sets out 2 prongs of what those requirements entail. Because the first prong of the Interstate Horse Racing Act under Section 3003 is that there is to be no interstate off-track wagering at all unless the consents are obtained under 3004. And under 3004, there's 2 aspects of it. There is the aspect of subsection A, which requires the consent of the host racing association. That's the out-of-state track that is actually performing the races and whose races are being simulcasted. And that track must have the consent of its horsemen's group before it can give its consent. And then there has to be the consent of that the host racing association's track racing commission to export the signal for wagering purposes. And then there has to be the consent of this racing commission, the import racing commission, in order to allow an interstate off-track wager to be accepted in the state of Arizona. The Act then goes on to say, and by the way, all of the court cases that Mr. Kloss cites do all recognize the mandatory nature of the consents in subsection 3004A. Section 3004B, however, is a different matter. It uses the same word shall, but it is interpreted by the courts to mean just what it says, a directory. And shall is not always in the law interpreted mandatorily. Sometimes it is interpreted as a direction. And that's exactly the way it is interpreted by the courts, including the courts that Mr. Kloss has cited. And I would say that as far as your own internal racing conditions and policies may be, I would cite to to the commissioners what your Arizona racing statute says at 5-109.01. It prohibits there being the adoption of a rule that discriminates in any way against a resident of this state who is engaged in this state in the business of breeding, racing, raising, or training horses for racing purposes. And the Racing Commission is obligated to carry out and adopt rules to further those purposes. That you can look at also in the rule and the statutes governing this body. And you can see that when you try to further live racing in this state, the destruction of live racing by putting out 60-mile OTBs within Maricopa County is only going to destroy the ability for Arizona Downs to carry on live racing. The horsemen have been given a right of consent also under the Arizona racing rules, and the horsemen want the a live racing circuit to exist year-round as much as possible in the state of Arizona. Now, let me also go and talk a little bit about what the Interstate Horse Racing Act does and why it's interpreted that way. It's interpreted that way because it actually has two prongs. It doesn't have 60-mile only. It actually has an out-of-state adjoining track rule. The closest out-of-state track, whenever there's darkness in the state of Arizona, and darkness is a technical term that talks about when there's no live racing head-to-head with simulcasting. So Turf Paradise doesn't even race right now on the weekends. It's dark. It doesn't race in the mornings on weekdays. It doesn't race in the evenings on weekdays. And it stops racing altogether for this year, at least all the live racing days it has, as of May 1st this year. The Interstate Horse Racing Act says whenever it's dark and whenever there is no other place that is live 8 miles of an OTB in Arizona, that you have to go to the closest live racing track in an adjoining state. You can't have it both ways. Turf Paradise is bound by that same rule. If the commission is going to apply it, it is bound to apply the closest adjoining state track rule. But the problem is, and this is the overarching aspect of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, it says you don't have to apply it except if you want to, and that's exactly what the First Circuit decision held. I'm going to discuss with you a little bit about those cases. The approvals that are in 3004B are talked about in the cases that are cited by Mr. Klaus, and he cites the Gulfstream Park racing case from Florida. But I note to you that the court there says, we note that Gulfstream lacks standing to assert cause of action for violation under 3005, which is the enforcement provision of 3004B. This exact point was made in the Sterling Suffolk Downs case at the First Circuit, and that was actually approved by the 11th Circuit. So the 11th Circuit actually agrees with the First Circuit that it is not mandatorily enforceable, it's only directory. You can go on to the Churchill Downs case that was here in Kentucky, and I know that case. I litigated it. That case, it's interesting how Turf Paradise quotes from it, where the judge is overviewing the requirements of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, but Turf Paradise's brief omits the clause that says, after all currently operating tracks within 60 miles of the off-track betting office, it closes the quote there, but it omits this, which was actually in the opinion. Or if there are none, then the closest such track in an adjoining state. That omission, I submit to you, is very telling on what Paradise intends to do. Footnote 3 in that decision goes on to say that the Host Racing Commission and all racing commissions' consents are governed by state law. And that's what is important here for you to remember. The Interstate Horse Racing Act gives you the state law prerogative to do what is appropriate as you see fit. That's the overarching purpose of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, is to allow the states to decide the gambling policies which will occur in their state on horse racing. And I would also note that the Maryland case, it says that in that case they were only talking again about the requirements of the and just overviewing track, and they also recognize that the overarching requirement is that the OTB facility get the consent and accept the wagers. That's the overarching requirement of the federal law, and that is to carry out national policy toward gambling. So I would commend to you the importance of the First Circuit Sterling Downs decision, but more importantly, that Sterling Suffolk Downs decision verifies two lower court decisions from the District of New Hampshire and also from the District of Rhode Island. And those are the only federal cases throughout the country. And I know I practice this area of the law all the time. Those are the only cases that specifically deal with what it is that 3004B requires, as it plays out in front of a state racing commission and as it plays out in the courts. There is no standing, even as the Gulfstream case says, for Turf Paradise to be raising these kinds of complaints before this commission. But even if it were not raising it in front of the commission, there's no standing for it to raise it in any court. The reason is because the federal law doesn't give Turf Paradise that right, And you, as a matter of policy for the state of Arizona, are bound to do what is in the best interest of live racing, breeding and racing and raising and training horses under ARS 5109.01. You are bound to do that. That's in the best interest of racing in Arizona, and you are bound to uphold the best interest. It is not in the best interest of Arizona to have Arizona Downs' OTBs closed down on select days for select hours of the week because Turf Paradise has invoked the 60-mile rule, but then Turf Paradise then has to also submit its own OTBs to that same 60-mile rule or the other prong of that 60-mile rule and seek to get the closest adjoining state's racetrack. You can't apply the 60-mile rule without applying the adjoining state rule. They are both part and parcel of the same thing in 3004 B1. B1A.
That's time we have allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Coolidge, because Mr. McSwain went over time, may I have 3 minutes to respond?
He had the same amount of time. Secretary Goodwin has been tracking the time on our end. I'll open it up to any of my fellow commissioners. Do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Chair Coolidge. This is Commissioner Olson. I just wanted to make a quick disclosure. Of course, I'm new here, and I am employed at Snell & Wilmer. I know that Mr. Langhofer was previously employed at the same law firm. Our tenures never crossed over, but I wanted to disclose that connection just in the sake of transparency and full disclosure. Since then, I know Mr. Langhofer and I have crossed paths in litigation, either engaged in similar matters or the same matter or opposing parties, but I wanted to disclose that here for the record in case any of the parties have questions.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to hear what the HPPA has to say about it. Do we have a representative on for them?
Chairman Coolidge, I am Doug McSwain. I have been the out-of-state counsel retained by the Arizona HPPA, and I am representing the interest of the Arizona HPPA in this matter. I think Arizona Downs deferred their time to let me make the argument, but that didn't mean to suggest that I'm Arizona Downs' counsel in this matter. I am Arizona HPPA's counsel in this matter. And so the position I stated is the position that the horsemen have, and the only thing I would add is that we urge you to consider the best interest of racing, raising and breeding and training horses in this state, and that is furthered by the ability of Arizona Downs to have an operative OTB network in the most populous county in the state.
Yes, sir. Understood. Thank you for the clarity. My issue here is multi-pronged. I've sat in the meetings with Arizona Downs and Turf Paradise talking about how to run one system. I've sat in the meetings on how we could put together a multi-system purpose. Unfortunately, all of those meetings have fallen flat to the point of, over the past few months, I know we were talking about a one streamlined system that we can deal with Monarch. I'm assuming that is dead, considering that now we're trying to yet again gut each other in the world of off-track betting. My concern here is, first and foremost, we are bickering over 8 days of remaining racing. Not only that, but we have never had Arizona Downs pipe up recently on any request for any in 60 miles or out of 60 miles. Third, I have continually brought up anytime Arizona Downs, Turf Paradise, whoever, now that the commission sees that we have some issues with or perceived issues with OTBs being too close to each other, we can now have those conversations upon approval. So, that's why I have a hesitation in just throwing up another red tape. Let's shut things down and let's make it more difficult for each other. All the while, the horsemen, the people in the industry, there is an impact that's going to be overlapped, and that's why I'm hesitant to move forward on one way or another. And I'd appreciate any other comments or concerns from the commissioners on on what they think, or I'd be willing to hear a motion.
Okay.
Chair Coolidge, this is Kelly Wagner. Were there any questions that you or any of the other commissioners wanted to specifically address to any of the permittees or other stakeholders that could be answered to help clarify or determine a direction that the commission wished to go?
Not on my end, ma'am.
I'd like to ask a question for the parties who presented today, and that is, and I know some of your briefing touched on this, but I'm curious what your position is on the difference between the words consent versus approval used in 3004 B1A versus 3004 A.
Madam Secretary, let's give both attorneys 3 minutes.
Thank you. I can start if
Go ahead, Mr. Claus.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Olson, Chairman Coolidge. The language is different because the bodies for which approval or consent are given are different. The subsection A puts the onus on the parties from whom consents are required to give consent before simulcast wagering can be, or simulcast can be imported from out of state for wagering in a different state. That is why subsection B is set off with, in addition to the consents that are required above, the approval is required of a specific party. And that party is fungible. That is why there is a difference between the words consent and the word fungible. The Horsemen's Group is not fungible. The in-state commission is not fungible. But in a particular state, there may be various horse racing tracks that operate within 60 miles of a particular off-track betting office. So that is why the verb approval is used instead of consent, because the onus is upon the operator of the off-track betting facility to get the approval of any track operating within 60 miles of a particular off-track betting office. And that approval is required. The cases that we've cited, every single case refers to it as being required, irrespective of the difference in the verb that is chosen. But that is the reason why the verbs are different, because the first three are not fungible entities, they are constant, but the fourth, the racetrack within 60 miles may be different depending upon when the race meet is being run and how many racetracks are within that 60 miles. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer that.
Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay. Commissioner Olson, to answer your question, the First Circuit Court of Appeals decision that was also understood and approved in the 11th Circuit case when it approved of the Middle District of Florida decision in Gulfstream, referred to it as a standing issue. And it's an issue that Congress itself understood. When Congress chose the consent word in 3004A, it was meaning it to be mandatory, just as Mr. Claus said. That's exactly why. But they chose a different word, and Congress knows how to choose its words. Congress knows how to pick a word and know to attach a meaning to it. And they put approval in subsection B because it's really only the parties who were given the consents in subsection A who can enforce it. And that's exactly what the First Circuit decision says. It says the Horsemen's Group, the Sending Horsemen's Group, the Sending Host Racetrack, and if the sending racing commission wanted to. But in any event, it's only those sending, or the sending horsemen's group and the sending host racetrack, that have got the ability to enforce subsection B. And they are the only ones that would have an interest to do so. Because in areas such as New England, which is why this issue was actually litigated in New England, is because there are many tracks that are within 60 miles of each other, and adjoining state tracks, if there's not within 60 miles, that are racing all the time up there, or at least they were at the time the Interstate Horse Racing Act was being passed. And because of that proximity, they wanted to give the parties who had standing to do anything under 3004A to be able to enforce it under 3004B. But at no time was 3004B and intended to require an off-track racing commission, such as the Arizona Downs Commission here, to apply it and enforce it. Because that doesn't mean you can't. You can. You certainly have got the power to do so. But we would submit to you that it is not Arizona's gambling policy for you to do that in this circumstance. Now, if California were to build a track 2 miles from the Arizona border, and it would be really close to Arizona, then at some point in time, it's possible you may want to enforce it. But at this point in time, given the lack of proximity of adjoining state tracks, the closest one being 375 miles away, and the Colorado track, when it live races, is 815 miles away. There is no reason whatsoever on this earth that Congress intended for the approvals in 3004B to have to be enforced by this racing commission. And that's the way the law is understood around the country.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Coolidge, may I just reply to that standing issue, because it gets away from Commissioner Olson's question, and it is just a misleading issue.
30 seconds.
Thank you. The concept of standing has nothing to do with whether it is mandatory or not. The concept of standing has to do with whether a plaintiff can sue in federal court, not whether it has the ability to ask the commission to follow the law. And the presumption by the Sterling Suffolk Court, the only question it was presented with, this case that they cite, was can the track sue the OTB? And the presumption that led the court to say no, the track can't sue the OTB, is the presumption that the commission would do its job and follow the federal mandated law. So standing has nothing to do with whether this commission should follow the law. It has nothing to do with whether Turf Paradise can ask the commission to follow the law.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate Chairman Coolidge. May I have 15 seconds to rebut?
Yes, sir.
That decision says that the commission, such as the Arizona Racing Commission here, that decision held, is to find a satisfactory solution that fits within its best interest within its own racing law. It's to find a satisfactory solution, and those are quotes right out of the decision. That's exactly what the Arizona Racing Commission is obligated to do. It's to follow the national policy of gambling, which is whatever Arizona believes is in the best interest of racing. I submit to you ARS 5109.01 clearly shows what that best interest is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll open it back up to the commissioners before we make any motions. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move that we deny the commission, or deny the procedure to, hold on, let me rephrase this. I'm going to motion to deny revisiting the procedure of off-track betting facilities in the 60-mile radius pursuant to IHA Section 3004B1.
Point of clarification, are you saying to maintain the previous position?
Yes, ma'am.
I second that.
Thank you.
Motion. I think that the language is mandatory, and I think that the shall language can't be ignored. So, the motion as presently phrased.
Ma'am, you were breaking up on my end, and I couldn't hear that. Would you mind saying it one more time for me, please?
Absolutely. I would like to speak against the motion as presently phrased. I have concern that the way the motion is presently phrased would at least partially or in full ignore some of the mandatory language in Section 3004.
I appreciate your input. We've also had a significant amount of prior discussions and interest on what's been happening beforehand and moving forward. So I'm gonna keep my motion unless my fellow commissioner wants to pull her second.
No. I second the motion.
Would you like me to?
Madam Secretary.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay is absent. Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
No.
Okay, we have 2 ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries.
Move to item, let's go back to C1. Mr. Estrada, are you ready to discuss racehorse adoption grants?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for granting me that time. With that said, for the adoption retired race 1 application, the name was Desert Oasis Rescue out of Tucson, Arizona. It appears that all documents were in order and submitted in a timely manner. With that said, my recommendation is to grant Oasis the $6,894.96 grant.
I have a question for board staff.
Sorry, you were breaking up, ma'am.
Question: has the proof of non-profit obtained? I know previously.
Commissioner, you're breaking up pretty good, at least on my end. I'm not sure if the department caught that.
My apologies. Any better now? Great. So my question for board staff is if the proof of nonprofit status had been obtained. From my review of the materials, it looks like it was pending last time I checked.
Yes, it looks like all documents are in order.
Any of the commissioners want to make a motion? I move to approve the racehorse adoption grants.
Commissioner Hover, if you're seconding that, you need to unmute your microphone, please.
Sorry about that. I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries, and Desert Oasis is approved to receive the $6,894.96 grant for the racehorse adoptions. Thank you.
We'll move to action item C7, simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U with Arizona Downs. Looking through the paperwork, I'd also ask the department for any input or missing information on behalf of Arizona Downs for items 1 through 6.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is Juan Estrada. It appears that most of the documents are in order. However, there's missing documents that I would probably have to go back and work closely with Mr. Longo and Johnson to make sure that those documents get submitted. With that said, there's also a question on the CDI contracts, which in response to that, Turf Paradise submitted a document where it states something to the effect that CDI permits guests to continue wagering on CDI content after the expiration of term without entering into new agreement and the terms and provisions of this agreement. They submitted a document for your review, and with that, I turn it over to the Commissioner, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Mr. Estrada, I'm running through that Arizona Downs simulcast agreements in addition to some of the other items we're looking at. You said there are some documents that are missing. What? Oh, no, I just missed it. And under 7A, 1 through 6, which one of those agreements are missing documents?
I'm sorry, for Arizona Downs, everything is in for them. It's Turf Paradise side, which is later on in the agenda.
Gotcha. Okay. Questions about any of those agreements pursuant to 5-112U?
And Chair Coolidge, before any of the other commissioners jump in here, I would just remind the Commission that pursuant to 5112U, there is certain things that the Commission should review when we're looking at those agreements to make its determination.
Yes, ma'am. We've been looking at the fees and complete approvals order, and the department seems to agree with those as well. Sorry, I'm juggling windows. I'll make a motion to approve the simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U for Arizona Downs in Churchill Downs Incorporated, PNK LLC, Naira Content, Omaha Exposition and Racing, Prairie Meadows Racetrack, and Sunray Gaming of New Mexico.
Second.
I second the motion.
Sorry, Ms. Olson beat you to it, Ms. Hover. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll do the roll call on approving Arizona Downs simulcast agreements according to 5112U on Churchill Downs, PNK Ohio, Naira Content Management, Omaha Exposition, Prairie Meadows, and Sunray Gaming. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Sorry, guys. I am running through about 15 different screens here trying to keep tabs on the agenda and the meeting packet. Mr. Estrada, now that we're on 7B, Turf Paradise items 1 through 4, would you mind revisiting those for the rest of the commissioners?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. For Turf Paradise, item B, 2, 3, and 4, it appears that everything required is in place. For item 1 is the one that's in question for the CDI. I believe they were asked to submit additional documentation since their contract seems to be since 2014. And again, I'll repeat the explanation that Turf Paradise provided was that in the event CDI permits guests to continue wagering on CDI content after the expiration of the term without entering into a new agreement, then the term provision of this agreement shall remain in effect. They have not provided the additional letter or approval for CDI, but they did include the explanation along with another document to explain why they haven't submitted the letter we requested.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, do you want to establish some clarity on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. The CDI contract, this Churchill Downs Incorporated contract, covers several tracks. It is a contract that we have been operating off of for quite a while, as is obvious by the date. It is a contract that the department has accepted in the past. It is a contract that has received approval from the commission every time a new track is started up. All the proper approvals for the tracks that are running, I believe, have been submitted with this contract. And I would even go back as far back as just recently as January, when this very contract was submitted to import the simulcast signal from Oaklawn Park, and everything was approved without any questions. I understand that the contract is old, but both parties have agreed to still allow wagering. It's obvious that the intent is there because we're receiving approvals from the host tracks regulatory bodies and Horsemen to say it's okay to send us the signal. So obviously there's not a concern. If they didn't want to send us the signal, they wouldn't get approvals for us to take and receive and wager on this signal. So I would ask that you approve these, and I also believe that Tom Varela may be on the call. I don't know if he was able to last the duration, but Tom Varela is from Monarch, and he could maybe even add some clarity as well. Thank you.
Wondering if he's going to pipe in here. Hi, this is Tom Varela, Monarch Content Management. Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Floor is yours. Okay. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Actually, I thought that Dave, he did a very good job in explaining what's going on. The agreement with Dave do have dates that are from 2014 for race dates. However, as we submitted under Section 16 of that agreement, if they, in the event they allow the guest to continue wagering, then the terms and provisions of the agreement shall remain in effect. We have not signed a new agreement since 2014. We have not been sent a new agreement since 2014. We have continued operating as is, and as Dave mentioned, Fairgrounds, Oaklawn, those have all fallen under this agreement.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your input on that. Director Casillas, is there anything the Commission should be aware of? I remember approving these before, and I want to make sure we're doing it by the T here. So any input you have would be appreciated, or if we can help facilitate getting the proper paperwork up to date, that'd be great.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The reason that the division has asked for new contracts is based on the new law under ARS 5112U. The prior approvals from 14 through 20, 5112U was not in existence, and it didn't require the Commission to review new contracts. So I understand Mr. Johnson and Mr. Varela's comments regarding the old contract with that Section 16 provision. I did have a discussion with Mr. Sims and Mr. Johnson at least 2 weeks ago, give or take, and asked them to contact CDI and get a one-page addendum to update the race dates for 2021. I know that they would reach out to get that done. And I thought that if they could at least do that and submit a one-page addendum with the current race dates, that would be reasonable and adequate for the Commission.
This is Jerry Sims. Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Director Casillas is exactly right. So what I did is I got on the phone and I called. See, we don't make these contracts ourselves. We do them through Monarch. So I called Scott DeRudy, the head of Monarch, and told him the problem. And he said, Jerry, there's a provision in these. Now, I did not know and understand that something's happened differently after 2020. And so, what Scott told me was, it's set up to operate under the old contract because it has a rollover provision. So rather than getting a new one, they just have us use the rollover. And so he didn't feel they needed to have this. I could I could talk to him again, but we're not going to have a meeting before the Derby, and we don't want to lose the Derby. Right? Anger customers all over the state. They probably all jump on and get other accounts where they don't bet with us anymore. Anyway, I would encourage you to pass it. And let's get it done for next year. We have plenty of time then to try to work through this.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or concerns from my other commissioners? That's it.
I think Commissioner, or is it too late?
Go ahead, sir.
As far as the overriding what's good for the industry, I would encourage you that it would be horrible for the industry if we didn't get the Derby, and good for the industry. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Chair Coolidge, I just have one quick question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Commissioner.
For Ms. Wagner, could you just, for my time?
Certainly. They are laid out in 5112U, and so that talks about any agreement that's coming before the commission must be offered to each commercial live racing permittee in the state, an additional wagering facility in the state. Each simulcast agreement executed pursuant to the section is subject to approval by the commission and shall approve the agreement if the commission determines that the agreement is reasonable and complies with the requirements of the statute, and that it also, in a shortened term, that it isn't anti-competitive. And the statute sets forth factors to be considered when determining anti-competitive or deceptive practices when reviewing the particular contract.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve Turf Paradise's PNK, NYRA, and Sunray Gaming of New Mexico agreements.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve PNK, NYRA, and Sunray for Turf Paradise, and a second. Any other comments, commissioners? Hearing no further discussion, the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover,
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
That motion carries.
I'll also make a motion to conditionally approve Turf Paradise's Churchill Downs Incorporated simulcast agreement, condition that the department receive a one-page addendum requested before the agreement is approved.
Mr. Chair, may I be heard?
We do have a motion. I'll pull my motion back. Go ahead, Director.
Regarding your motion, sir, just one thing for consideration being that it is conditional. One thing that we've done with the Boxing MMA Commission was the commissioners delegated approval authority to the director once they gave conditional that once all documentation has been submitted and is appropriate, that the director can issue that approval going forward. Something for you to consider to expedite the process. Thank you, sir.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to go ahead and end my motion.
Okay.
I would motion to approve Turf Paradise's Churchill Downs Incorporated simulcast agreement, condition that the department receive the one-page addendum requested before the agreement is approved, and the director may approve the signal moving forward.
I second.
Thank you. I have the motion and a second, and just for the record, Mr. Johnson, Dave Johnson, had raised his hand prior to Director Casillas making comment. And I don't know if you want to allow him to address you or if you want to proceed with the vote.
We have the motion in a second.
Okay. So proceeding with the motion for approval of the CDI contract, conditionally that as long as the Turf Paradise sends us the one-page addendum prior to the start of the wagering, and the director may approve said addendum. Is that a correct summary?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Voting on the motion, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Johnson, I still see your hand. Oh, never mind. We're going to move over to C8, simulcast agreement, simulcast.
Excuse me, actually, Mr. Johnson re-raised his hand.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you for letting me have one more opportunity to speak. I would just like to make sure I do understand, because, since 2014, Churchill has not wanted to send an agreement to Monarch. They have preferred to operate under these conditions. Since we are going to hold this contract in this manner, that we have to have this before we can simulcast anything. My understanding of 5112U is, in essence, if this addendum isn't received, then the entire state's going to have to turn off the Kentucky Derby and Arlington Park and everything else that goes along with that, because obviously they're not sending a contract to us. So that's obviously not fair, that one track would get it and one track wouldn't. I just want to make sure I understand that properly. I'll do everything I can in my power. I'm sure Mr. Barella, who's listening, will do everything he can in his power. But due to the fact that there hasn't been anything that has happened in the last 7 years, I just can't imagine how this is going to impact the industry, and I would hope that you guys could help me out on that. I mean, is that what we're just going to have to tell the customers? Because this would impact Arizona Downs. This would impact Express, Glen Spires, TVG. Everybody would just have to turn off the Derby and the state.
Dave, or Mr. Johnson, I understand where you're coming from and appreciate your concern. I think, the department would be willing, and I would ask the department to help facilitate any adjustments that need to be made to ensure that those betting facilities are able to do so. I am also more than happy to sign on to a letter from the Department of Racing to encourage the Kentucky Downs to be able to do that. So however we need to do it, I think you have 8 days to get it done. They have made amendments in the past, so I hope that we can do that and make sure there is no disruption in the simulcast.
All right. And this does apply under 5112U, because I just want to make sure I understand that right.
Yes, sir.
I will do everything in my power.
Thank you. To C8, simulcast horse racing import signal content pursuant to the IHA Section 3004A3, Arizona Downs items 1 through 21, frankly, because I don't feel like saying them all right now. I'm going to move that over to either the director or Mr. Estrada to identify any issues that we need to be aware of.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So when it starts to item 1 through 21 for Arizona Downs, it appears they have most of the paperwork in order again. I guess I was premature earlier when I said that I would work closely with Mr. Longo to make sure I get those documents. But for the most part, everything is in order. We do have an approved contract. The only thing we may be missing is approvals from the AZ HBPA. But like I said, I would work closely with Mr. Longo to make sure that we get those in place.
Okay, so let's go through it again, because we need to know which ones don't currently have HBPA approvals. I have a sheet here, but I want to make sure that that's the most up to date. Pull that up. Looks like we have Horseman's approval for Arlington Park, HBPA, and the contract. Looks like we have an issue with Canterbury with the AZ HBPA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it looks like we're having some issues with Canterbury, Colonial Downs, Delaware Park, Elias Park, and Emerald Downs and Louisiana Downs. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Are there any other outstanding issues?
None.
That we need to be aware of?
None, other than those pending documents.
As far as Mountaineer Park and Sunray Park, is there any issue with those?
No, sir.
Looks like we have all the other items. Any of my commissioners have any questions or concerns? Okay. Just making some notes here. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Arizona Downs, Arlington Park. Oh man, I'm gonna need somebody to help me with that one. Assiniboia? Yeah, too. Belmont Park, Belterra, Churchill Downs, Evangeline Downs, Fairmont Park, Grants Pass, Indiana Grand, Mountaineer Park, Prairie Meadows, Sam Houston, Sunray Park, Thistledown, and Woodbine.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any other conversation, commissioners?
No, ma'am.
Hearing none, I'll go ahead and do the call to approve those as listed by Chair Coolidge. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, I'll also make a motion to conditionally approve the Canterbury Park, Colonial Downs, Delaware Park, Elias Park, Emerald Downs, and Louisiana Downs, condition on the fact that we receive all prerequisite approvals per the IHA prior to the signal being accepted. And I'll ask that the department make the determination if the approvals are appropriate so the permittees don't see any delay coming back to the commission.
A second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for conditional approval. Any other conversation, commissioners? Hearing none. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to item C8B, Turf Paradises 1 through don't know why these are. Let's go 1 through 22. Mr. Estrada, you want to roll through this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The same with Turf Paradise. There's most paperwork in place. In this instance, with Turf Paradise, we do have the outstanding contracts with the CDI involving CDI. We also have with them still missing multiple host commission permission and host horseman documentation, as well as for Delaware Park, we're missing AZ HBPA approval.
Okay, so the only thing I gathered from that was Churchill Downs and Delaware Park. The sheet that I also have for the simulcast approvals, it looks like it's a placeholder sheet, so it doesn't have those identified. Can you identify the other tracks that we're having issues with HPPA and others?
Okay, for Turf Paradise, the only pending AZHBPA would be Delaware Park.
Okay. What are the other issues on any of the other?
Okay, so Arlington Park, I'm still missing a host commission approval.
Yes, sir.
I'm also missing a host horseman permission, and that's the contract with the CDI. So once they submit the one pager that we requested earlier, they should be good to go with that. Also, Churchill Downs is missing the host commission.
Yep.
It's missing the host horseman permission, and it's also a CDI track. So Delaware Park,
yep,
is the one we are missing the AZ HBPA. Delta Downs, we are missing the host horseman permission. And I'm sorry, in the host commission also as well.
For which one was that? You said Delta Downs?
So Delta Downs, correct. It's missing the host commission permission. We're missing the host horseman.
Do we have that on our action items here?
I'm showing
Delta
Emerald and Evangeline Downs, but no Delta Downs, Colonial Downs, Louisiana Downs, and Thistledown.
Madam Secretary, you're identifying those as missing items?
No, sir. Those are the ones that I have as downs on my list. And Dave Johnson has raised his hand.
Dave, help us, will you?
Delta Downs is part of the New York Content Management Services Agreement. I have requested from Delta Downs their approvals, and they referred me to Joseph Longo. I don't know if Joe's on the call. Joe represents the NYRA Content Management Services. He might be on the call because they also represent Arizona Downs as Monarch does us. But I have obtained an approval as of yesterday from the Arizona HBPA to take Delta Downs. I just haven't, I didn't have enough time to send that over to the department in time for the meeting. I also have one for Delaware Park as well. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, while I have you, Delta Downs, what are the dates on that? Because I want to make sure we're not putting you in a bind.
Chairman, Commission, Delta Downs starts on May 10th.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner and Chairman, can I ask a question? This is Jerry Sims, just for clarification. I'm not sure I understand this.
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand. Under the provision that Director Casillas referred to, number U, my understanding is that means you have to offer the signal to everybody. Can't just offer it to one without offering it to everybody. Do I have that part right?
Ms. Wagner, would you chime in on that question, please?
Certainly. I believe Mr. Sims is requesting the commission answer as far as the contract review under 5112U, that as part of the commission's determination, they must look to see if the contract and what is being offered under that contract is being offered to the track and the additional OTVs.
Mr. Sims, you're asking about item C7, correct?
That's the one with Churchill Downs and the Derby. What I'm trying to understand is, didn't they offer that to everybody? But there must be something wrong with my understanding of it, because Director Casillas said it changed this year, and because of that new law. So I'm trying to understand if Churchill Downs offered the Derby to everybody as the law requires.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm having trouble following your question. Director Casillas, I think, is still on the line and would be able to show clarity there if needed.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Regarding his question in agenda item 8A with Arizona Downs, it appears that 8A6 Churchill Downs, it was offered to Arizona Downs, and under Section B, it's being offered to Turf Paradise. So I'm not sure that I'm following his concern or question there. It's being offered.
Let me clarify. Thank you. My understanding is that we need a letter that was referred to before in the motion from Churchill Downs. Does Arizona Downs in the same position, or are they set to get the Derby for some reason that we're not?
Mr. Chairman, Arizona Downs does not have a contract dated 2014. They were not in existence then.
So their contract is, since that time, after 2020, and that's why theirs is okay. Do I have that right?
I believe you're correct.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing that.
Yes, sir.
What do we do? Let me ask you this last question. What do we do if they won't give it to us? They say, look, you've got a contract. We've offered it to everybody, so we qualify under that new law.
Mr. Sims, I would direct you to the department, and I would encourage you and your team to get with Director Casillas and his team to figure out how you can make sure that you have everything you need under the law.
Thank you very much. I'll do it.
Yep. Any of my commissioners have any questions moving back to item C8B? Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve simulcast horse racing import signal content pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3 for Turf Paradise. My favorite one, Essenbalia, Belmont Park, Volterra, Canterbury Park, Colonial Downs, Ellis Park, Emerald Downs, Evangeline Downs, Fairmont Park, Grants Pass, Hastings Park, Indiana Grand, Louisiana Downs, Mountaineer Park, Prairie Meadows, Sam Houston, Sunray Park, Thistledown, and Woodbine.
I second.
With my fellow commissioners, I believe that some of the ones who listed were still pending for the host commission. Do I have that wrong?
That was my question to the department before, as a lot of these normally come in late before the meeting.
Oh, okay.
But, Commissioner, I would like to just belts and suspenders this, so I'm happy to ask that question yet again. Sounds like Surf Paradise is only missing items on Arlington Park, Churchill Downs, and Delaware Park, but I want to make sure that that is indeed the case.
We don't have to worry. Mr. Chairman, this is Juan Estrada again. We were actually missing, I believe we left off at a track, which was Fairmont Park, maybe? We were going down the list of pending documents.
Yeah, I think maybe we left off at Evangeline. Is that right, Mr. Estrada?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Estrada, important for us to know which of these are indeed still missing items. So let's go through them one more time to make sure that that is the case. Madam Secretary, please pull my previous motion.
Done.
Mr. Estrada, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. So this one has quite a list. So Arlington Park, we're missing host commission. We're missing host horseman, and Arlington Park falls under the CDI. We are going down to Churchill Downs. We are pending commission host. We're pending host horseman, and it's also a CDI track. Going down to Delaware Park, we are pending AZHBPA approval. Delta Downs, we are missing host commission. We're missing host horseman. Evangeline Park, we're pending host commission, host horseman. Fairmont Park, we are pending host commission and host horseman. Evangeline Park, we're missing host commission and host horseman. Fairmont Park, host commission and host horseman. Go to Grants Pass, we are pending the host commission, host horseman. Indiana Grand, it's a CDI, so we'll be pending that document. And then lastly is, I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, but it's Thurstal Down. We're missing the host commission and host horseman.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Commissioner Olson, for making note of those. I'm going to amend my previous motion to approve Turf Paradise's simulcast horse racing import signal content pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3 for Assembleia, Belmont Park, Belterra, Canterbury Park, Colonial Downs, Ellis Park, Emerald Downs, Hastings Park, Louisiana Downs, Mountaineer Park, Prairie Meadows, Sam Houston, Sunray Park, and Woodbine. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. So the roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Okay. Chairman, if you could indulge me one more time. I have one comment that's important for everybody to understand. If I can take a quick moment.
Sir, does this have anything to do with the current line item that we're on?
No.
Let's push pause on that until we go to your tracks comment period, and then we can address it then.
Very well.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to also make another motion to move to approve or conditionally approve Turf Paradise's simulcast horse racing import signal content pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3
conditioned on the fact that we receive all prerequisite approvals for the IHA prior to the signal being accepted. I ask that the department make the determination if the approvals are appropriate so the permittees don't see any delay coming back to the commission. These will be for Arlington Park, Churchill Downs, Delaware Park, Evangeline Downs, Fairmont Park, Grants Pass, Indiana Grand, and Thistledown.
And there's a Delta as well, Delta Downs.
I do not have a Delta Downs on my agenda.
Thank you.
Did you say Hastings Park, or was that in our previous motion? I apologize.
Hastings was in the prior motion, ma'am.
Okay.
So with motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Hover. Any other discussion? Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson? Was that a yes? I'm sorry?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
No, I was waiting on Commissioner Olson.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Move to C9, training presented by Attorney General Kelly Wagner. Would anyone like to go into executive session? Okay, Kelly Wagner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This was placed on the agenda, presumably at the Commission's request for additional training. I have presented each of the Commissioners through the Commission packet, excerpted sections, Arizona Statute Title 5, Chapter 1, Administrative Code Title 19, Chapter 2, as well as the complete statutory presentations under Title 38, Chapter 3, which concerns open meeting law, as well as Title 38, Chapter 2, which is the information concerning the loyalty oath that an employee and or commissioner must take upon embarking on service with the Commission. One of the questions that have been received from the Commission is basically the Commission's what the Commission is about. And in Title 5, Chapter 1, and specifically at the beginning of those sections, Section 5102, it establishes the Racing Commission. So the legislature established that commission, indicating the number of commissioners that are to be based upon the commission. The 5103 indicates the prerequisites for each commissioner on that commission as well, who may and who may not be appointed by the governor on the commission. It also sets forth the prohibited activities in 5-10301 as far as making sure that individuals on the commission have no interest that could conflict with any decisions that the commissioners may take with regard to any questions before it. Statute 5104 lists out the Commission's basically directives as far as what the Commission shall do. In subparagraph A, the Commission shall issue racing dates. Subparagraph A2 is prepare and adopt complete rules governing anything to do with the protection and promotion and the safety and welfare of the animals participating in racing meetings. To also promote and protect public health, safety, and the proper conduct of racing and pari-mutuel wagering within the state, and any other matter pertaining to the proper conduct of racing within the state. Under A3, it's to conduct hearings on applications for permits and approve permits and conduct rehearings on licensing and regulatory decisions made by the director as required pursuant to the rules adopted by the Commission. And 4 is to conduct all reviews of applications to construct capital improvements at racetracks as provided in the chapter. It also grants the Commission the authority to authorize stewards to conduct random urinalysis testing on specific licensees if they have reason to believe the licensee is under the influence or unlawfully in possession of any prohibited substance regulated by Title 13, Chapter 34. The Commission also is tasked with establishing for the promotion and adoption of retired racehorses. The Commission may issue subpoenas for attendance of witnesses or books, records, and documents relevant to a particular matter to be brought before the Commission. You may administer oaths and in front of anybody who appears before the Commission to give testimony in a hearing pertaining to matters before the Commission. You adopt rules concerning photographs and videotapes that must be retained by racetracks when they are running live. They are also, through that particular statute, the Commission may certify animals as Arizona bred or as Arizona stallions, and delegating how that particular instance is carried out. And that could be delegated to a breeders association to actually contract and collect and manage that particular breed of horse. It also allows the Commission to obtain the services of the Office of Administrative Hearings on any matter. Turning to 5107, this sets out the nature of the racing meeting permit and everything that must be before the Commission when it is reviewing a permit, and what needs to be submitted to the department. As previously indicated through a previous agenda item, one of the requirements of having a permit under 5107.02 is the delegation and, the identification of the manager that will be running the races for each permittee. 5108 specifically deals with the issuance of the permit, and so the Commission has specific points that it must look to when it is looking for issuance or renewal of a permit, and what the Commission may look at in considering those matters. 5108.01 talks about the hearing on the application or renewal of original permits. So when there are original permits or renewal requests for the Commission, this particular statute lays out what the Commission shall do with regard to those permits or renewal requests. 5108.02 also deals with the revocation of those permits and the statutory due process that must be provided to any permittee where the Commission believes revocation is the appropriate grounds. 5110, 5112 deal with wagering and OTBs and the requirements for permittees and the additional wagering facilities to actually receive simulcast races. And so those statutes are specific and for the Commission to review. And I also included as part of the excerpts 5115, which lists out violations of the particular statutes listed within Title V, Chapter 1. Now, I've gone through these very quickly because the statutes speak for themselves. So it is my assumption that you as the commissioners will review the language there, and you don't need me to specifically read them word for word. Actually, if you do, I can certainly do that. As we've gone quickly through those statutes, do any of the commissioners have questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. There is also the Arizona Administrative Code, that these are the rules and regulations that the Commission has approved for the undertaking of the very specific day-to-day or the steps that must be undertaken. So I've given you as the Commissioners specific rules for your review. Do you wish for me to go through each one to set out the specifics, or are you comfortable in what you have received?
I'm good on my end, Kelly. Commissioner Olson or Holly, looks like you were going to say something.
This is Commissioner Hover. I'm fine.
Okay. And Commissioner Olson is fine as well.
Okay. And obviously, if there is something that the Commission is requesting further education on, I can certainly provide whatever statutory or regulatory guidance may be out there. There was a training in late July of 2020, I believe, to welcome new Commission members on board, and we did go through very specifically a lot of the open law meeting or open meeting law statutes. With regard to open meetings, the kind of overall gist of it is that the Commission should be conducting its business in open meetings so that there is transparency for how the Commission is reaching its decisions and for understanding by the public about how the Commission is reaching those decisions. There has been concern having contact with members of the public. That's certainly something that you as a commissioner can do. I would just note as a cautionary item to take note of the conversations that you may be having and to reflect on those conversations, especially if it is something that may be coming for a decision, or be an accusation or a potential accusation that Commission meeting is being conducted prior to the meeting happening, or that there is any type of discussion that is being had to indicate a position by the Commissioner heading into something that might be agendized for the Commission to review. You certainly can speak to anybody you choose. That is certainly up to you, and you may do as you wish. Just remember that the business that is being undertaken by the Commission should be happening in open meeting through the open process where public can see and comment and understand how the Commission is coming to a decision. Just as a quick reminder, any type of communication outside of the Commission is considered a public record, and so I would advise that communication be kept to the open meeting and that discussions on specific items be dealt with during the open meeting. Now, again, this is dense stuff, especially, but each of the statutes have been listed in Title 38, Chapter 3, concerning open meeting law. Are there any additional, or are there questions concerning open meeting that I may try to direct you towards as far as statutes or regulations?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay. And as you've been through up to this point, there is federal legislation that is also governing for the Commission, and that is contained in the Interstate Horse Racing Act of 1978. You were provided a complete copy of that as well, and that concerns interstate off-track wagering and the consents and approvals that come with that. Is there additional information that I can help to provide any guidance or training on?
No, ma'am. I think unless any of the other commissioners, looks like they're all shaking their heads now, I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Then that is, you have the statutes before you. As I noted, these are just excerpts from the statutes and the regulations. The full statutory history is encased in Title 19, Chapter 2. The regulatory rules and whatnot are the statutes are at Title 5, Chapter 1. The administrative code is Title 19, Chapter 2.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner.
You're welcome.
We'll move to item C10, Arizona Downs request for off-track facility at 30 Birdies in Flagstaff. Looks like we have Mr. Billingsley scheduled to speak on this. Mr. Billingsley, are you still on the call, and do you still want to speak?
I am on the call, and I have nothing to say. Here to answer questions if needed.
Yes, sir. Mr. Billingsley, are you familiar with the closest OTB to the Flagstaff location?
I am. Antelope Plains in Prescott Valley, and it is 88 miles away.
Great. Any other commissioners have any questions about the off-track betting facility?
I have a question for department staff. And my question is, and maybe I just don't have an up-to-date materials, but do we have of the individuals who own more than 10%, or was it just because it was wholly owned?
Yes, Ms. Olson, this is Juan Estrada. As far as the applications, we have all the applications for the owners, one manager. We've also received the application for the facility. The only thing we're pending is a inspection of the facility, which will be conducted tomorrow at some point.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I'll move to approve Arizona Downs' request for the off-track facility Dirty Birdies at 2285 East Butler, XF, Arizona 8004.
Second.
Thank you. Excuse me, having a motion to approve the OTB Dirty Birdies and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Motion carries. That OTB is approved pending the inspection.
Thank you, ma'am. Move to D1, track safety reports.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'll give you a quick synopsis of what has been transpiring since April 15. There was renovations to the training track at Turf Paradise. I believe training was canceled for that morning. The track was harrowed, which means it was being cut open to make sure that the surface gets mixed correctly. Also, on Saturday, April 17, Turf Paradise have, I guess they have protocols that they abide or go by a guy that works the track by the name of John Hubbs. There, they've also been soaking the track, seeding it, and rolling it, and so they're abiding by these protocols. As of Wednesday, April 14, it was reported to us that there's approximately 1,462 horses on the premises. Also, and with that said, we will, for Arizona Downs, we would probably have staff look at the facilities and report back to me of their findings. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hover, do you have a question?
Yes, for Mr. Estrada, is there a number count of horse fatalities in the past 2 to 3 weeks at Turf Paradise?
Commissioner, I do not have the accurate number at this point, but I will seek that number and make sure that I have it to you on the next commission meeting.
And then in regard to that, I've heard it been referred to that you are always awaiting necropsy. I was wondering what the time frame or turnaround on the vet report on the fatalities or severe injuries and how I could access that to look at that.
Again, on that item, I would ask that I get some time so that I can seek that information and provide it to you at the next commission meeting.
Okay, and then one last question. The veterinarians in attendance, is there a record of that, the number of them, especially in lieu of how our industry is going with various horse accidents? I was just wondering what the veterinary care was. in regards to Turf Paradise and, again, for the future of Arizona Downs.
Again, I'm fairly new with the staff here, so I will ask that you give me some time, and I will get with our track veterinarian and state veterinarians and get that information to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. We're going to move to, we're going to push D2 until the next meeting. We'll move to D3, budget report, Director Casillas or Mr. LaForce.
Jason, are you on? It doesn't appear that he's on, Mr. Chair. I don't believe that there's any budgetary issues going on at this time.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, I see your hand is raised. Can you have something to put above hand, or are you going to wait until your committee report? Okay. 4A, American Greyhound Racing. Arizona Downs.
This is Tom Author. And I just wanted to just do two quick things. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how grateful we are to Greg Stiles for his service, and we'll miss him. And also Commissioner Profiter, who was a very conscientious, hardworking commissioner. We just want to thank them both for their service. And with that, here's Mike Weiss.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Let's go back to this track surface, so I can give you some news and updates as to what we're doing for safety. As we speak right now, we actually have a piece of equipment on the track. We're starting with a rock picker. It's on the move. We took samples of the surface and sent them to the University of Kentucky. We took depth samples, took them to the University of Kentucky Racetrack Services Lab, headed by Dr. Mick Peterson, for review with Colonial Downs track consultants Ken Brown and Dennis Moore. We have reached a conclusion together on a blend of sand. We're going to mix a solution in to the track of 3,500 to 4,000 tons of sand after our rock picking services is over. I do see this type of track analysis as a regular procedure at intervals that are to be determined throughout the race meet. This plan has put the commission and the horsemen's minds at ease, knowing that our concern is about safety. On top of that, I'm taking another safety initiative, and after having some discussions with my team, I'm going to add a third professional outrider. I've always thought we should have that on a mile track. So we will have 3 outriders, not only during training and during the live races. To continue the report on, we have a horseman schedule. We have pushed the schedule up a couple days so that we're going to open the barn area May 5th so that people can come in for stable preparations. May 7th, they can bring the horses in, and then May 15th, we'll hope on planning for training. I'm going to be in contact with Leroy Gessman with the HPBA after finding out recently that turf will be closing May 7th. You know, there's going to be a lot of commotion, so if possible, I'll stay in touch with him and try and accommodate and push dates up even more if I can. I've submitted my officials list to the Racing Commission and going to have you a wagering format in the next couple days, and I've already engaged a couple interns for internship credit students from the University of Arizona.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I appreciate the update. We'll move to county fairs. Burrito Park.
If you don't mind, I'd like to address that also. I don't have a whole lot to say about Rito right now. I want to remind you, we're almost completed with our permit application. Made a really good effort to move forward and clean some debts off. The nonprofit is having a fundraiser May 1st at St. Philip's Plaza for a big derby party. We will not have wagering, but we're going to have a lot of fun, and there's going to be silent auctions to benefit the nonprofit, including Authentics 2020 halter from the Kentucky Derby winner, and the dean of the Cal School will be there to speak to talk about the partnership a little bit. And on a good point, I just want to mention a student, Taylor Owens, who she was a student at the Racetrack Industry Program, worked at Rito the last few years. She just got selected this week to be in the Godolphin Flying Start program, which is really a select program. Only 12 students around the world are chosen for this. People that come out of this program are industry leaders. It's a full scholarship. They work overseas. She's getting ready to go to Ireland for a couple of years and work under this program and train. And that to me was really exciting.
That's great. Thank you. We'll move to Tucson Greyhound Park.
Alicia Heiser, Federico here, General Manager. Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Turf Paradise.
Yes, this is Jerry Sims, and you'll want to hear from Mr. Mayor. But I just want to tell you that there's another problem that came to me, and that is if church, we're going to try the hardest we can to get that one page from them. If we're not able to, then I think it's easy to see they're not offering us the signal. And therefore, under that statute, nobody else in the state can take it. That's a consequence of this, and that would include the other tracks that they supply us. If they're unwilling to give us a letter, then it's a real problem.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor?
Well, can you give me some response to that? I'd like to hear just some.
I mean, it sounds to me like you're looking for a reason to not go try to get that letter first.
No.
I've already offered your team the fact that I'd be willing to sign on to the letter, and I would hope that other commissioners would be willing to sign on as well. I'm sure the department would do what they can to see how we can go do this and abide by the law to get it done.
Thank you, but I will assure you that I want the Derby and those other tracks. Can you imagine if we don't have that other content while we don't have Monarch? That would cripple our OTBs, not even counting the Derby. And the Derby, we've already allowed somebody to come hold a party with 400 or 500 people out on the grass, putting tents up. So, no. I can assure you with every bone in my body, I want that to happen. But if we don't get it, and we've had to, what I'd like is some comments, because we obviously can't take Monarch for the same reason. If Churchill won't give me their signal, won't give us their tracks, I'd like to know what's going to happen with Arizona Downs. That can't be skipped over. I mean, it's a consequence, and we're going to try like the Dickens to get it. I appreciate your help.
That's something that the commission will have to take under advisement, if and when, hopefully, we don't get to that point.
Yeah, but we won't have many days. How would you meet in that time to make a decision? It'd be awful unfair.
Sir, I would assume that the department would bring that to us, and unfortunately, we would have to do an emergency session or, maybe discuss with the department how to approach that topic.
Thank you for explaining that, and we will work real hard to get it. We appreciate your help.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, do you have additional comments to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to divide my remarks into two sections. One is the current meet and the future meet that Turf Paradise has planned. Prior to that, I wanted to see if I could address a few Commissioner Hover's questions, specifically about breakdowns. They are recorded by Dr. Gale, who is the ADOR vet, the state vet here at the track. They are shared with me, as well as Dr. Waterman, who works for ADOR also. And the pathology reports, what we do is I get them, Dr. Gale gets them, Dr. Waterman gets them. We meet once a month with the trainers connected with those horses that suffered fatalities, and we go over the necropsy report and question them as was there anything they could have done differently. What was done on Saturday to both the main track and the turf course, the main track we put on 350 tons of number 10 mesh sand. That's a very specific sand that does two things. It gives bounce or puts life back into the dirt. It also it breaks down clay from bonding, which is what causes most of the problems on a racetrack like Turf Paradise. We've been off the turf for some time. We'll go back on it Thursday, and what we are doing there is we are rolling it, seeding it. It's going to be aerated on Tuesday, and what that does, aeration, is it allows a turf course specifically to breathe, and that will take us through then the rest of the meet. In regards to this meet, we have 9 days left, and I'm certainly not counting anything until we get to the finish line. Every day has been a challenge of a different kind. Today, when I was watching workouts, horses were attacked by a beehive that went berserk on the property. It took down one of our workers. I had to close training early to get the horses off the track. I only use that example because every day has been this type of challenge. With that in mind, I want to express my appreciation to the horsemen who have worked with me every step of the way of getting through this meet with all of its challenge, not the least of which have been the coronavirus. Looking towards the next meet, at the May meeting, Turf Paradise is going to put in for approval before the commission for a new 3-year permit and also for a new race meet. The new race meet would start November the 5th, which is the first day of Breeders' Cup, that is a Friday, and run through May the 7th, which is the Kentucky Derby in 2022. This meet was an 84-day meet. We've lost 4 days due to one thing and the other. Next meet is a 106-day meet planned, and what we have found that abbreviated meets, that is meets not quite as long as 130 or 135 days, are beneficial to us in management, equally so beneficial to the horsemen because the purse structure is up. We are going to end this meet averaging $110,000 a day to the horsemen. That has never, ever happened here at Turf Paradise. So what that tells us is balance your race meets so they're not too long and, of course, not too short so that everyone has the opportunity to race. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
Thanks for the update, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Hover, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, if I could just revisit those topics quickly. In regard to the fatalities of the horses and their subsequent necropsy reports, is the commission allowed to review those documents, review those findings? Is that made available to us? Because I'm new on the commission, and in my tenure, I have not ever seen any reports in regard to the horses, the safety of the horses, the longevity of their ability to race. So I was wondering where I could access that information.
Commissioner Hover, this is Vincent Franci, not Mr. Johnson.
Oh,
yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, I see. Well, they have the wrong name right there.
No, that's fine. David and I work together. It's absolutely fine.
Sure.
I would be willing to send them over to the department, to Mr. Casillas, and he can share them with all of the commissioners. I'm sure Dr. Gale, who works for the state, would be willing to do the same. They come into me and Dr. Gale, and we review them. Like I say, then we get together with those trainers whose horse has suffered fatalities, and we go over the necropsy report have a lot of questions. It's a very thorough type of thing. But yes, to answer your question, they are not private. They are not germane just to Turf Paradise or to the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we'll move to item D5, industry stakeholder updates by counties.
This is Ryan Bratcher. Can I have a comment on the Turf Paradise surface and the crop seed report and all that good stuff? I'm a racehorse trainer at Turf Paradise.
I'm sorry, Brian, who are you with?
I'm a racehorse trainer at Turf Paradise. I'm a licensed trainer in California as well. I've been licensed in Canterbury, Iowa.
Brian, we can move you to call to the public.
What's that?
We can move you to the call to the public.
Okay.
Arizona counties. Arizona Quarter Horse Racing Association. Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Association.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, and Director. This is Debbie Zimmerman from the Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders. The ATBA would like to invite all of you to our Arizona Breeders Festival on April 23rd. This is our day to show off our Arizona breds, and we're presenting our 2020 award to our champions. And we are also looking forward to having an Arizona Breeders' Day at Arizona Downs. That's my update.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
HBPA. Jockeys Guild.
Hi, Commissioner Coolidge, Chairman Coolidge.
Yes, sir.
Leroy Gussman. Sorry, I was pushing the star and 6 and whatever, but I just wanted to take a few minutes and say that on Friday, the horsemen are having, after the races, the chaplain is having a barbecue on the backside. We'll be serving barbecued beef sandwiches to all horsemen and the backside. And if you guys come to the races, you're welcome to stop by as well. The chaplain has put all this together, and anyway, kind of a year-end going-away situation. The horsemen are excited about going up to Arizona Downs, and we are very excited about getting the track fixed up there. When we were there in 2019, we had some issues with rocks, and it sounds like they've taken care of that, as well as getting new material in. So the horsemen are very excited about being able to move up there, and look forward to our summer meet racing in Prescott. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gussman.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Hi, who's this?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, who's this?
I'm sorry, I've been trying to get on as well. This is Lloyd Yosa with the Arizona Quarter Racing Association. I got just a brief update, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, Director, this is James Lloyd Yosa, President of the AQRA, which I may or may not have mentioned the last commission meeting. As of March 13th, I'm the new president for the Arizona Quarter Racing, as well as the vice president for the HBPA. I'd just like to give a little past and current events, things that are happening with the Arizona Quarter Racing. We ran our Arizona Quarter Racing Turf Paradise Derby trials on May the 29th. We had 50 head of horses. All horses were in the trials. The 50 head were air tested, and for clean racing. Our intention is to clean up racing in the quarter horse business as well as thoroughbreds. So The finals run today, the 19th, which I was hoping to get to the track before they run, but they probably already ran the first race. But anyway, that being said, there's 10 head that are in the race that are drug-free. Our purse was $77,000, which is unbelievable what we've been running for in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. That money came from nominations from the horsemen. As you well know or may not know, that the quarter horse run for their own money. They put up nomination monies to run, which was $66,150 plus $15,000 added from the purses. And on April the 6th, we ran our Arizona Quarter Turf Paradise Futurity for 2-year-olds. They were 70-plus heads in that race. All were hair tested. And the finals run on April the 28th. And the purse is $89,400, which is, again, unbelievable under the conditions that we've had and the circumstances we had for this year and the past years. Nominations were from the horsemen, from the quarter horsemen themselves, was $72,000 coming from the owners, and $15,500 coming from purses. $17,500 coming from the purses. They were 6 trials in that race. And last, our signature race for the quarter horses is our Desert Classic Derby. It was ran on April the 5th with 30-plus heads. And again, all were hair tested. And the finals will be run on April the 28th, which we would invite you out if you'd like to come see some fast quarter horse races. The purse was $61,000. $30,000 of it was added from the AQRA. 15. That's not correct either. It's 30,000 added. 15 from Turf Paradise. 15 from the Horsemen. After those races, with as much participation as we had, I went to management at Turf Paradise and asked for consolation, and they were courteous enough to allow us to have 2 consolation races, which are the ones that runs today. We have a Derby consolation and the Derby finals, which are running as we speak. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
None here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the update.
Thank you, and we appreciate the commission and all the tracks that are trying to work with us to save racing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll move over to item E, commission reports. Anything to note there from my fellow commissioners or Director Casillas?
Nothing to report, sir.
Thank you. I know we have 2 people in call to the public, or at least that's what I had on here. Ms. Profiter?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Jana Profiter. On Friday, April 16th, I received an email from the governor's office removing me from service on the Racing Commission. As a commissioner, I was an advocate for the horsemen. As a private citizen, continue to advocate for the horsemen. I want to thank the current commission members for their efforts on the horsemen's behalf and entreat them to continue to keep the horsemen's interest in mind as they deliberate in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and appreciate your service. Madam Secretary, who else did we have for call to the public?
I apologize, I didn't catch his name. I believe he was on the phone.
Ryan Bratcher.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. I just feel like I have a couple things to say about Turf Paradise. I've had been in this business my whole life. My grandpa trained at Turf Paradise. He trained across the country. I've trained across the country. I've trained in other countries before, Canada. I think it's a very blatant disrespect to the horsemen on how the track the dirt surface and the turf surface has been treated this year. The turf surface, for instance, only has a push lawnmower. They have a skeleton crew of probably 3 people. They don't really have a turf guy. Their answer to that is they bring in the turf guru from Dubai and Del Mar to give them a political stance on what to do twice a year. But then they take his information and then they take about 10% of what he tells them and run with it instead of doing what he tells them to do on all of it. They just run with 10%. That's just a political stance for Turf Paradise. I'm just here to voice my opinion for Turf Paradise. I think Vincent Francia and Mr. Sims are blatantly disrespectful to horsemen, and as far as, this is our livelihood. So if we have a horse break down, not only do we care for them emotionally, but there are 401k, there are everything to us. So I think it's a disrespect by Turf Paradise not doing their due diligence and taking care of the dirt and the turf. I have video of the turf, and if you guys want to call me privately, I'll send that video to you of the turf course. It's horrendous, guys. It's absolutely horrendous. So if you care about horsemen in Arizona and you care about horses, you will not let Turf Paradise continue to disrespect the horsemen at Turf Paradise. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, sir. And I would recommend you send any information that you have to the department that you feel needs to be reviewed.
I will, I'll get with Leroy on your information. I really definitely want to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Commissioner Hover, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could please solicit from Ryan his concern with the dirt track, with the base, the depth of the sand. Can you give me any information on that? Specifically the base.
Ma'am, I think that the issue of the dirt not being consistent and not being uniform has been an issue before these last 15 breakdowns. I think management just kind of skates over the issue and gives you a political answer on the other end. I think that 250 tons of sand is not even close. Yavapai representative just told you they're going to put their amount of sand. It was like 3,000. It was like the number was astronomical compared to the number that Turf Paradise is doing. I think Turf Paradise works on the skeleton crew, and they just don't maintain the turf course and the dirt course to the standards of America. I just left Del Mar in Santa Anita, the toughest place to run, and I almost feel like we need to implement some of their actions, even though they're going to be hard on horsemen, just so management can't continue to do this stuff to horsemen and blame it on the horsemen. If you go back to read Ben Francia's letter, he almost pushes it on the horsemen, saying it's a bad group of horsemen. But if I could tell you, it's quarter horses, it's young quarter horses, older quarter horses. Horses go around, horses that are sprinting, horses that have 4 races, horses that have 50 races. So it's not just one horseman, and it's not one sort of horse that's doing it. It's multiple horses that are doing it and multiple trainers. So you just can't point the finger on these two things to say it's that. So that's for, in the fact, it's the track. If all these things are happening, it's the track. You can't point it on the horseman or say this horse has got 60 starts, because it's horses that are just starting and it's horses that have 60 starts. It's a plethora of horses across the board. So you have to ask yourself, is it the dirt or is it the horseman? Thank you for your time.
And my question to you further is, when you mention inconsistency of the track, are you talking about the depth of the sand, or are you talking about the difference in the base? Is the base holding up and there's not enough sand, or has the base been compromised?
Well, the base is not holding up because there's not enough sand, and then they create ridges in the track. So the ridge is what break horses down. So if a horse steps on a ridge out there, then he breaks the septum down. And you can go back to the Naproxy reports, and I guarantee you most of these are septimoid breakdowns. So that, therefore, is the track, not the horseman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. Okay, we're going to head back up to item B, executive session, Sims versus Sims. Ms. Wagner, you think we have anything we need to move into executive for on item 1?
Chair Coolidge, this is actually being handled by outside counsel, so I am not the attorney to ask that question.
That would be Camilla Alarcon or Chris Herring, and I'm not sure if they are currently in the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Cassie, we are here. We do recommend moving into executive session because we do have a litigation update.
Move that we enter executive session.
Second.
Thank you. That was Ms. Olson who seconded. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor to go into executive session on item B1. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. The time is 1:53 p.m. and we will go on to our third executive session. This open session is recessed. Please join me in executive session. Thank you. I have my commissioners back. This is the fifth open session of the 686th Arizona Racing Commission meeting. Commission Secretary Goodwin will take roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Hover?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. I have my quorum, and the time is 2:11.
I move that we allow the attorneys to proceed as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover? Ms. Hover, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to executive session item 2, Arizona Downs LLC versus Arizona Racing Commission.
Do I have a second?
That wasn't an executive session motion. I just didn't know if we needed
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Chair Coolidge, this is Kelly Wagner. I do have a brief update for the Commission.
Thank you, ma'am. I move to enter executive session.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to go into executive session on item B2. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion has been made and seconded. It is 2:13 p.m. and we will recess this open session and go into executive session. Okay, we have a quorum. This is the sixth open session of the 686th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place April 19, 2021 via Google Meet. Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin will do roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Hover? I didn't hear you, Holly. You present? Okay, we must be having technical issues on her end again with the microphone. We can't hear you, Ms. Hover. Can you hear us? Okay, I see you nodding and I'm reading your lips saying you can hear us. But without having you on the tape, I don't have a record of you being present on the audio end of it, and that's what we post out for the public. I know you're time constrained, and I know that you need to leave at 2:30. So we've had call the public. Chair Coolidge or Kelly?
Secretary Goodwin, Commissioner Hover, if you would log off and log back on so that we can at least establish quorum to finish out the meeting.
Okay, she has exited at 2:22. Ms. Hover, are you there? Your microphone's on mute. Are you there?
I'm here.
Thank
Can you hear
you.
me?
Yes, I can. Okay, so it's 2:23, and Commissioner Olson, you present?
Present.
Thank you. I have a quorum. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, we just finished the executive session. I'll just make a motion for belt and suspenders. I'll move that we continue as discussed in executive session with the Attorney General's office.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to have the Attorney General proceed as directed in the executive session. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to item G, announcements. Next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, May 13th, 2021 via Google Meet. And I would hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That's been motioned and seconded. The motion carries. It's 2:25 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.